Alright, we're back to go ahead and finish up the screen replacement here. The first step we're going to do is go ahead and reapply the adhesive to the exterior edge of this device. Want to be careful not to cover up any ports. We'll be using some of this 3M double-sided adhesive. I have basically a few different sizes, a 1mm, a 3mm, and a 5mm. So we'll be using, I believe, the 1 and the 3. We use the 1 down the edges of the bezel, the 3 down at the bigger parts. We'll start down here at the bottom. We want to get as close to the edge as possible and slide this down the side here. We want to make sure that we don't overlap or go up the bezel of the device as we're doing this. We don't want the screen that we're putting on to try to lift off or have any reason to be pulling away from the bezel itself. So try to get this as flat as possible on the interior of the device. On the bottom down here, there's nothing to really worry about covering up, so we're going to go put a lot of adhesive across the bottom. But then, of course, across the top, we do have all of the sensor ports, an earpiece, speaker, a front-facing camera. We want to make sure we don't cover any of those up. Go ahead and start here and work our way across the bottom, making sure not to cover up any sensor ports on here. Do another layer across the top. We'll go ahead and fill in the middle with a little bit as well, making sure that we don't cover up anything. So cutting it just short of this front-facing camera here. So we're using our thinner 3M double-sided tape to go ahead and go up the bezel here. We'll run this down the side, making sure that it's nice and on par with exactly where we want it to be down the side. We don't want it to be off or in the middle or up the side. We want it to be nice and flat, right next to the edge of the bezel. Making sure we don't overlap any of the tape. Go ahead and do the opposite side. Just use our pick here to go down and make sure all of the tape is sealed down correctly. It's important that when you go to try to peel the backing off, that the edges that you're peeling up are adhered nice to the mid frame. That way the tape doesn't try to peel up as you start to peel the backing off. Go ahead and start removing the backing of the tape pieces here. Down both sides here at the bottom. We can go ahead and insert our cable through the bottom. Make sure it comes all the way through. Push down in the corners here, make sure everything fits together nicely. All the way down to the bottom. Make sure the corners are all nice and flat in there. Making sure that the new cable will reach to its ending point. Now I realize I did forget to pull off a piece of the backing on the tape at the top. It's not the end of the world. Since it's all about the same thickness, we have enough adhesive up there, so it won't make a difference in the actual repair of the device. The next step is when you go ahead and put the shielding back on. We're going to go ahead and remove the copper tape off of this old device here. You can see that it'll just kind of peel right off for us. You don't want to be careful not to rip it. It does rip pretty easy. Just take your time while you remove it. You can go ahead and apply this to the backing of the new display. Now you can do this before you put the display on as well. It would make it a little bit easier to do. We're just going to go ahead and kind of tuck it down here in the bottom. The one thing is, if you put it on before, sometimes you risk it being kind of stuck in the middle in the transition as you're trying to lay the LCD down. We can take our shield here, go ahead and put that back in its correct slot, making sure the opening is over the speaker connection. We can go ahead and reinstall our bottom speaker assembly here. Just go ahead and reconnect the cable. Then roll it back over. And it almost kind of snaps into place. Go ahead and put a screw or two in. The particular screw I'm putting in here is the one that you don't want to put in. The one you want to put in to hold this assembly in place is the one down here at the bottom corner. That'd be the only one that I'd put in until after we put the battery in place. So we can go ahead and reconnect the screen connection here. Can be a little bit tricky with the new cable. You may have to align it properly. Sometimes it's easier to bend the cable into place and then connect it to the logic board. That is the case with this one. He's got a pretty big thick portion of the cable up here at the top. So I'm going to disconnect it. We'll bend it down into place and then reconnect it. It can be a little bit tricky to make sure you get back in. Now, I'm not pressing extremely hard on this to get the cable to reattach. I'm taking my time and putting firm pressure, but I don't want to damage any of the connections onto the logic board. That is almost an unrepairable fix unless you're really good at using a microscope and some really fine soldering iron. So it's looking to see exactly how it connects on, how far away it is. Sometimes it works better to go ahead and pull the cable back up a little bit, put the connection on, and then re-put the cable down, which is what I'm trying to do now. Alright, so we have it in place, just making sure that it cusps right next to the logic board. That way when I put the battery in, that I don't want to damage or pull this away from its connection. It might be a little bit loose, and that's okay. I'm going to try to get all the grounding connectors to fit back on the bottom of the cable here. So we're just going to try to tweeze it up here towards the top. Take our battery and go ahead and put it into place. See, this is exactly why I didn't want to put that first screw in here. We're just going to test it here real fast and make sure the display is going to work properly for us. Excellent. So it is responding to touch. We have our top connection cover here. See, I'm pointing out that screw that I put in incorrectly, so we're going to go ahead and remove it real fast. To do that, we're going to pop this cover off and unconnect the battery here real fast. We'll undo the screw at the bottom down here that holds the battery in place. Reconnect our battery here real fast. Then we can put our screws in down here at the bottom. Should know better than to reassemble without doing the exact opposite of the way I disassemble the device. Go ahead and put our top cover on after all three screws are down at the bottom. Put the remaining screws in the top portion of the device. I'm getting the screws nice and solid, but I'm not twisting them in to strip out the phone. So make sure you get them snug, but not over tight. Just going to double check the display here real fast to make sure everything's going to function. If you've taken the phone apart more so than what you've just done, you may want to test the Wi-Fi and all the features before you start putting that back on. You don't want to have to go through and take that back off. So I went ahead and tested everything to make sure it functions correctly. Touch and everything else, the Wi-Fi, anything that we might have touched while we're on the interior of the device. The bottom speaker is the one that you want to make sure that you test as well. The next thing you're going to do is go ahead and put the adhesive around the exterior edge of the device to go ahead and reassemble the back panel. So same exact double-sided adhesive all the way around. Again, just making sure that we don't go up any sides of the bezel. We want to make sure it's nice and flat when we reassemble the device. I'm going to cut this a little bit thin so we can put it down here in the corner and not overlap on top of the other additional piece of tape down there. Then one piece across the top. Cut a little bit too long, so just going to make sure it's nice and short so we don't overlap. Let's go through with our dental pick and make sure everything's pushed down nice and smooth across all sides of the edge. I'm going to put a little tiny piece of adhesive here at the top. Do everything we can to keep it water resistant. Go ahead and peel back the adhesive. Next step is go ahead and put the back on. Same manner as the front of the screen. You want to make sure that it's got all the corners nice and flush before you start pressing down the sides. Let's go ahead and insert it. Get all the corners to line up. And that is it. That's the finishing touch on this Xperia Z1s. If you found the video helpful, go ahead and hit the like button. If you have any questions, go ahead and throw them down in the comments. I'll do my best to reach out and get back to you. If you like the video and you want to see more, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and I'll throw up a couple more each week. And as always, thanks for watching the videos. I'll see you on the next one.